Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam. Good morning. Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. It is Thursday, December 8th, 2022, and it is Thankful Thursdays. And for those of you that did not hear, Brittany Griner has been released from the penal colony in Russia per our president. She is safe and on her way home. And he made a statement earlier that said that she's in good spirits. However, she's going to need space and time. And I mentioned that in the context of he's not a guest. He's, we call him Uncle Java, one of the very first supporters, charter member of the Java fam. And I texted him this morning on something different and said, Brittany is free. And he wrote back and mentioned that, she's been released from lockdown, I'll let him I'll talk about the full statement. But then I'm on social media as well, and I seen this other post that really pulls that sentiment into this conversation in space. And while we're celebratory that she's been released, I think this statement here sums it up from Lauren H. in Boston. This woman will forever be changed by this experience. And it's inexcusable that it took this long for her to be released. But that A clause, this woman will forever be changed by this experience. And so it's in that vein that I introduce to some and present to others. Uncle Java, who we call him here in the Java Cafe, I asked him to come in when I saw his response. And then I've seen some of that sentiment, Uncle, on social media as well. And so first of all, good morning. How are you, King? You're giving us very holiday beard.
Hey man, that's that section that's coming out, right? Yeah, that's that old man sexy coming out.
I said,
well, good morning, man. I'm good. You know what I mean? I just spent
good.
10 days with mom and cracking and joking. And
how is mother? Give us an update, because we stay up to date with her in here.
Yeah, she's physically better, which she's having some issues, with memory and other components. So we're going to have to move her in with my sister.
Okay.
And we did some of that prep while I was down there, and, really, I just spent all day with her.
Yeah.
Right? Went to the gym to get some mental break. But no, it was fun. Lots of arguments, but it's sort of like our arguments are like me and you shooting the dozens.
Yep.
Right? It's not, it's no resentment. We end up cracking up laughing, and like I'll give you the example. Like the one argument is about her shoes.
She has a lot.
She had like 40 pair of shoes, and we're like, we got to give some away.
Mm-hmm.
We were doing donations, and it was this one 6-inch heel pumps or 4-inch heel pumps that she had brought probably 30 years ago. And I'm like, Mom, we're gonna get those. Boy, you better not throw my shoes away. I like those shoes. I might have to use those for your next wedding. Yeah. I'm like, look, you ain't gonna never have to use those.
Right? There's a whole bunch there. There's a whole bunch there.
Yeah, or the gala or something else. I'm like, Mom, you use a walker, right? You can barely walk in your sneakers. So how you gonna walk in these?
Uncle.
Right. So that's the, because I don't want people to get it twisted.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
Because this is still, the world where they take your words and they make them mean,
That's
something different.
That's a whole nother Zoom there. But
Yeah.
I know you only have a few minutes, but I really wanted to, one, and you've been a big influence on me trying to be balanced in all things. And so that, is the premise for us saying that we're celebrating. She's on a plane. I mean, the president confirmed she's on the plane. She's on her way to the US. But you raised the sentiment, and so did Lauren from Boston as well, talking about her experience. Now, she's been released, but when you mention that she's not necessarily quote unquote free, we talk about often words matter. What is the context that you meant by that? And we'll also name and make space, because we talked recently about being a veteran. And so I know there's some perspective of that for you, Unc, that plays into this. She wasn't quote unquote a prisoner of war, but I'm just naming that as well. So when you say release versus free, what is the context there?
I think for me, there's several components. When I've talked to brothers that have been locked up, right?
Yep.
And locked up and then found innocent, right? And come out, they may be free, but they're not free.
Yes, sir.
Right? They're not free in their mind. And, even some that have been on your show.
Yep.
Right? They're not free in a lot of different ways. Fortunately or unfortunately, it's not just them that's been released and that's traumatized. But when I think about her wife, right, and their relationship at this point, what does that look like?
Yep.
The reality is America is one of the best countries in the world to live in and to grow and to prosper. There's many opportunities, right? There's many challenges, especially being men of color, or me. I'm gonna speak for me as a man of color. There are many challenges that I face, each and every day. But when I started to think about her, and when I started to think about, she's 6 foot something.
Yep.
She's got a distinguished features that everybody knows. She's been on every news. What does she do? How does she get out of the house? Right? How does she go and have a dinner? Right? How does she drive through at a McDonald's?
Yep.
Right? And so when we start to talk about free, what does free mean? Right? How does she begin to breathe? And how does she deal with the guilt that's there because Paul is still there and she's not home? Yep. Right? How does she, and that gentleman's been there for 4 years, right? How does she begin to shift when people start to blame her, right? You know what I mean? How does she move from that victim mentality that she's going to have because she's there, right? Because, this is a space of varying opinions, right? About, the reality is that when we start to think about it, the reality is that Russia wanted, this arms dealer back home.
Yep.
And they found a way to be able to do it when they arrested her.
Yep.
Right. So they amped it up. Nobody in the world thought she was not going to be convicted. Nobody in the world thought that she was not going to go to a more challenging facility. Right. Because, that's just the way that Russia works. Yep. Right. And they had to put enough pressure in order to get this gentleman out. They wanted him for some time. And they're in the middle of a war, and now you want an arms dealer, right? So it's a bunch of different things. But I started to think about, some of the conversations that we have of the trauma that we dealt with as children.
Yes.
Right? That we're still starting to process and we're not free from, right? Because we haven't gotten that assistance that we need, or the right person, or the apology, or we haven't forgiven ourselves. Right. And so when you start to think about her having a little bit of whatever she had, right, how does she forgive herself? Right. So that's a different level of, when I started to think about freedom, I started to think about all of the challenges that she's going to face, from the media wanting interviews, from her saying the wrong words, right, in some interview down the road, from the people in the WNBA and the NBA and the LeBrons and the others that felt like they've done something but really haven't done significant change, from the from the black folks, it's gonna feel like we should be doing more on other stuff.
Yep.
Versus just her, right?
All of that.
We're still dealing with shootings almost every other week here, and just in this state. And when we start to look at, no matter what city I'm in, it's the same thing, right? I was just in Virginia, and it was shootings left and right, right? And the police all come out. We live in the safest city, right, in America, right? So I'm like, okay, but for me, it's just like, how does the president say she needs some time to heal?
Space and time. Yep.
Yeah. But who's gonna give her that? Right? Who's gonna keep the media from being outside of her house when she comes home?
Yeah.
Or does she have to go to a hotel? Does she have to hide to keep those other pieces? So when we start talking about freedom, what does that mean? Right? She's been released from a place that was holding her hostage.
Yep.
Right? So I don't even want to say prisoner. Yep. Right? They were holding her hostage, right? In order to get something. They got what they wanted. Now she's back here facing a different demand. Right? And so, and having to navigate all of that for the rest of her life. She's never going to be Brittany, the WNBA superstar, the second to dunk outside of Lisa Leslie, and all of these other things. She's going to be the former prisoner, the former hostage, the former whatever, right? How does she get her life back? This is her identity forever.
It's so interesting, and thank you, because I was thinking that, yes, we're centering this conversation around specifically Brittany and her release and then freedom. And a lot of what you alluded to via the new set of circumstances that she's going to deal with coming home is to some extent the freedom of the mind. Right. And I know your time is short. And so you definitely covered everything in reference to Brittany. And though you or I make probably very good presumptions, but nobody knows like her and her spouse what they're dealing with, what that marriage is going to look like 6 months out, 6 years out, hopefully well, but if it even survives, because there's a whole, and that's something that both of them are dealing with. And so I heard undertones, Unc, of, yes, we're talking about her in this situation, but when you talk about our trauma in childhood and freedom in a sense of the mind of the things of which we've dealt either in the past or recent, there's some skill sets that come with what you're talking about in reference to Brittany. But then also you and I, recently as this week, have had some conversations about really being free from the past. And so there's a lot that you mentioned that is applicable to us generally. And so on that piece about, like, still dealing with trauma and shootings and things and whatnot, what are some of the things that generally that we can apply to get out of that? And I'll be very honest and transparent, and get out of that stuck place, imposter syndrome and all that.
Yeah, I think it's different. I think the first thing I'll say, I think it's different for everybody.
Absolutely.
And I think it's different timelines for everybody. I think we should not be setting expectations on somebody to get out of something.
Yes, sir.
Right? Because even just dealing with family is like, that boy, that girl should already be over that, or you're enabling.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Because, I'm like, what does that even mean? Right. I don't understand that. But I think, for me, it's about finding my own space in my own process, but working with somebody around that. Right. I still go back to having that kitchen cabinet of folks, right, that can work with you authentically, right? There's this thing in DEI that we talk about, about engagement, right? And engagement has, these things of like, in order for you to engage, it's got to be meaningful. You got to feel safe, right? And you got to be available, right? And so those are the three ways that, we can start to gauge. And so for when I started to think about relationships, because I think that's one thing, like when I look at our relationship, it's meaningful,
Yes.
right? It has a lot of different dynamics in it, but it's meaningful. I care about it, you care about it, so it means something to us. And so, when we get together, it's also safe,
Yes.
right? It is a safe space for you and I to have real conversation,
Authentic. Yep.
because I know that it's not going to be anybody else, right, hearing what I just said. I know that as a grown Black man that's about to turn 60 in a few months, that if I start crying and hurting and showing my pain, that's not going to cause you to move back. That's going to cause you to stand still and to be able to affirm me within my pain, to be able to get me out of it.
Yes, sir.
Right. And then the thing of being available, if I'm coming to you and you're in pain, we can have a real conversation about, like, I'm not really available right now.
Yep.
Right. I'm not really there to be able to do that. And I think the more that we can surround ourselves with people in that nature, right, the more we can do to sort of move ourselves. Because, we can read the books. We can do all of these. We can do the counseling once a week, which is important, right? We can find our purpose, whether that's yoga, running, walking, right? Me is photography. But we've got to create that space and have within our network those people to have real and open, honest conversations with. Like for me, there was a time recently that I was challenged, and and my boy Conan called me, and he had to reaffirm me.
Yep.
Right. And he just called out of the blue. But, when he's sort of like my mom, when he heard the first word, he's like, all right, what's wrong? Right?
You can tell by the voice. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. There was some stuff that, I didn't really want to talk about, but, when you feel you're in a safe space and the conversation means something, and that he's available at that moment to have that real conversation, no matter where he's at. It's helpful to get direction through. So, but I think it's this whole thing of doing more self-care and not as much aftercare, right? Because people, because people keep talking about, like, I just want to look this one thing up. Cause I keep,
Go ahead. We do stuff in real time here.
Because, people keep talking about, oh, we need to do more self-care.
But it's really, I'll be honest, it's aftercare and self-care, because self-care, I think, if I'm right, is present and future, looking out for present and future.
Yeah.
A lot of us are really in the conundrum of aftercare and self-care.
Yeah, because, I think it's really, how do you prep yourself to deal with the stuff? Like, how do you, self-care for me is like, all right, I'm going into work and I know I've got to deal with A, B, and C, because I'm going into whatever meeting, and there's a community meeting, right? And I know I'm going to be triggered in that community meeting because they're going to be talking about shootings. They're going to be talking about whatever. I'm going to be blamed or whatever it is,
Yep.
How do I prepare myself to that? And how do you sort of work through that? And I think that for me is the bigger deal versus, all right, now I'm gonna go get a massage. right?
Yeah, because
or I'm gonna get me a drink, right? I'm not saying people don't drink before in order to be able to deal with something, right? But I just think that we need to define, and I don't want to define it because I'm not a specialist, right? But there's and I don't want to read stuff. I feel like people should figure out and go and talk to whoever they're talking to as for their counselor, to figure out what they're doing, is what they're doing for themselves, self-care or aftercare. Like my photography for me is self-care.
Yep.
I'm doing all of those things that I can go in someplace and not understand when I'm triggered, and be able to, like, deal with it and be able to know what I've got to do in order to make sure that I don't go in a different direction, right? Within that meeting, within that space, right? And so that's why you might see me downtown sometimes, like walking around with my camera doing some photography, even if it's for 15 minutes, because I've got to go into a meeting that I know is going to be difficult. And that's not necessarily a meeting in my office. That's a meeting, maybe a call with you, right? Right? You know what I mean? Because we got to talk about some real shit, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. You
Yep.
know, it may be, you know, like when I go and, you know, we're having family calls with my mom,
Mom. Yep.
right? You know, it's, I go for a walk,
Mhm.
right? I go for a walk beforehand. So when I get on that call that, you know, I know that I've released some of those things, and then I go for a walk afterwards.
Yep.
Right. So there can be this combination of things that you're doing, you know what I mean? But I think when you talk to your girl next Monday, right, you should have that conversation, or bring in, when you're talking to the folks from Mass General or some other community specialists, right, you should talk about what is self-care and aftercare.
Yeah.
And I think you should have somebody talk about, for men of color, what does that look like, right? You know, and I think, you know, when I think about, I've listened to like Sean Ellis, when I listen to some of these other folks that have gotten out, right? You know, I mean, it's just a different world, man. And we all have different challenges, right? Most of my family is in Virginia, right? When I was home, there was just a different vibe.
Yeah.
There's a there was a different sense of love that set in that space,
Yep.
right? And so, you know, when my grandson's over, there's a different sense, you know what I mean, of love, and you know, that's there. But you know, it's, you know, I got medical stuff going on. I've got, you know, work stuff going on. I'm trying to figure out like my photography, you know,
What
and
next year looks like.
yeah, and you know, and there's many times that I feel down,
Yep.
right, and I feel down on myself, right, around a lot of different things happening, right. But how do I get past that,
That's right.
right? And I think, you know, and part of how I get past of it is like look at like what Brittany's going to have to deal with,
Yep.
right, coming up, and be like, all right, you know what I mean?
In
Uh,
comparison. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really, yeah, you know, because I know there's always somebody doing worse.
Yeah. And
Right?
there's what I heard from you a lot, Uncle, was individual and communal grace.
Yeah,
Grace for us ourselves individually, not a crutch,
right,
but also giving grace to others as well.
right.
Did you find what you wanted to look up?
Yeah, I found it, but I felt like I'm not gonna put something out there that people gonna be like, "What does that mean?" And then we're gonna be up here another hour trying to explain it.
Yeah, because
I just feel like people should really think about is what they're doing self care or aftercare, right? Uh, and how is that propelling them forward,
yeah.
right? Because you know, the greatest thing that we deal with is fear,
Hmm.
right? And you know, I think, you know, the article I posted around my sister, right,
Yes.
where she talked about courage, putting people first, and the aspect of not leaning in but leaping in,
Mm. Which
and
is
taking opportunities. And I would encourage everybody, especially sisters, right, to read it, because you know, she's the C-suite, you know what I mean, uh, young lady that, you know, grew up same thing, you know, father died at a very young age, right? So single mom, you know, and it's three of us, right? And she did, and when you read her article, you talk about, you learn a lot about giving, right, and leadership and courage, right? And I laughed because I was with her the whole weekend, and she didn't say anything about the article.
I
And I'm
saw
like,
that part. But you can't
yeah,
say nothing because you do the same thing. So
yeah. Then all of a sudden, I'm on LinkedIn and I see it, right? Because you know, and but you know, it's a powerful article, right, about, you know, how to move forward.
there's the link
Right?
in the comments, everybody, so you can get a direct link to that.
Yeah, and it's you don't have to subscribe or do any of that stuff to read it, right? And it's a really powerful article that I think all Black women should read, and I think all Black men should read,
Yep.
because there's a lot there for us too, even though it's really focusing on her as a leader, a woman,
Yep.
right, and the biases and challenges that she's had to face in order to get to being the vice president at Verizon, right? And so, yeah,
Uncle, I appreciate you, man, because I thought, I'll be very honest. My thoughts in reference to Brittany after I'm like, yeah, she's free was one, she's definitely going to get debriefed,
Mhm.
by the, you know, Secret Service, SSI, not SSI, Secret Service, military, whatever. But then I did also think about like, what is the mental health and sort of a general, real quick, just general. And so when I read your text, I was like, yeah. And then I seen Lauren's post and I was like, that and the president was wise enough to, he was like, she's safe, she's on a plane, but we need to give her space and time. And not
Yeah.
just Brittany, but that's for ourselves as well,
Mhm.
to give
Yeah.
ourselves space with grace and time.
Yeah. Because a lot of people have hopes and dreams that have yet to be manifested,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of them, we are sitting on them ourselves. And we are the only person that can actually do
Mhm.
something about our own hopes and dreams. You know what I mean? I am my dream,
Yep.
right? I've got to do the work, right? And I've got to not be fearful to step out in that. And not to say that there are not times that I am,
Yep.
right? And so, you know, I always just want to be clear, right? Especially right now, this time of year, like I don't celebrate Christmas like folks celebrate Christmas,
Hmm.
right? Like I've brought a bunch of stuff for folks, right? And that's happening, and people are putting up lists, and I'm doing that, right? You know what I mean? Yeah, because they're all like, I love it though, because it's
Yep.
schools that are putting up lists for kids,
Yep.
right? It's stuff that they need, and I can just go on Amazon and blah blah blah, press buy,
And
and I'm
people,
done. Right? I'm
now
done with it,
Teresa.
right?
Yep.
But it's a beautiful thing to be able to do that. But I also know that there's a lot of kids that's not going to get anything.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I know the sacrifice that my mom had to do in order for me to get a new bike on Christmas. Or, my greatest was a tape recorder, a cassette recorder, right?
Oh,
I
God.
know, but I did tell you my age earlier. I used to walk around playing Earth, Wind, and Fire. But then when the batteries ran out, because I record the radio, it might be 2 weeks before I get new batteries. Right? And so, because we ain't have it like that.
I'm just picturing you walking around with the boom box.
Yeah, yeah, fight the power, baby, fight the power. But it's a tough time.
Yes,
Many
sir.
people have lost loved ones, right? This is my time to reflect,
Yeah.
right? To reflect and to reconnect, but to reconnect to my ancestors,
Yeah.
right? Because my grandmother on my mother's side, I never met because she died giving birth to her youngest daughter, who's still on this earth. And there's many times that I've sat in spaces and sat on panels, and I wonder, am I doing my grandmother's that sacrificed her life for her
Mm.
daughter? Am I doing her justice?
Yeah. Yep.
Right. And taking the time to reconnect with that spirit, because I'm everything I do, I'm speaking for her.
Yep.
Right. And then it's the time to renew. Right. So it's reconnecting, with my ancestors, my grandmother, my grandfather that I knew, that gave all that they had and put all they had, and my uncles and aunt that passed on, and all of those others that from the slave ship and before the slave ship on,
And all
right?
that we carry
Yeah,
with
we
us.
carry within us, right? And then the next thing for me is really like, to renew. How do I renew?
Through
How do I
little
how
man.
do yeah,
Little
how
man.
do I reflect? So it's reconnect, reflect, and then renew.
Yep.
How do I reflect on all of my challenges and where I stood at, and which ones did I allow to hold me back that should have been pushing me forward,
Yep.
right? Because it was that view, it was that lens that I was seeing each situation in that I need to reflect on it and correct, right? And I think that's why photography and me work together. And that's why I say it's my, it's my meditation, it's my yoga.
It's your
Because
super,
I'm in,
it's your
yeah,
superpower.
yeah, because when I'm in situations, now I look at which camera lens am I using to look at that through, right?
Mhm.
One body, many lenses. right? And so which camera lens am I using? So that's my reflection, right? I'm like, I go back and I journal and I look at those situations like, which lens did I use? Which lens should I have used? Right?
You get a
You know what I mean?
yes.
Yeah.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah. How could I expose more light, more natural light to it?
Yes, sir.
Or did I add artificial light that really shouldn't have been there in the first place? Right? Then it's renew. So I take this last 2 weeks of the year to renew. You know what I mean? And to, and just be with myself, right?
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And so that's it, man. I know we took 35 minutes.
You
And
good?
I'm
Because
sure,
I'll take his because I
yeah,
haven't had you on in a while, and I always love your perspective. I know you don't need this, and it will shut me down, but
yeah,
you are a foundational pillar in a lot of not just support, and yes,
right,
support and the line through the S, that too, but in the philosophy and in the mission and the vision of what this cafe and movement is. And I heard a lot of undertone of what I've been listening to this week with Mr. Thomas. And
yeah,
so I really appreciate you for that, because I think you and I and other experiences have happened in sporadically, periodically, but listening to this in a succinct structure. And I did hear the word that he talked about, schedules and structures. And so, yeah, I was
I'm gonna
hoping
leave all that alone.
I listen, because I was like, at some point he's going to get me here. But you actually did. Yo, Thaddeus, look who's on. Oh God. Okay, James, keep yourself together.
Yeah,
All right, folks. So I just want to acknowledge this young man. The other night when I went live, I had made reference to a young man that I've known. And Troy, somebody reminded me that you was around when we were in high school. So it even goes back longer. But Troy Smith is a young man, City of Boston employee, that was recently shot in Dorchester. And so, Troy, please inbox me your info so I can check on you, sir. But to
yeah,
see you here and in this space, Troy, we just want to lift you up. We know that you're, not as bad physically, but we just want to lift you up and allow you, sir, that everything that comes with what you dealt with, and we know you're a man of faith, but everything you dealt with, we as a community are holding you up, praying for you for quick healing, and also everything that comes with the mental health impact of what happened. So, brother, we're here, and I can volunteer our brother Thaddeus to whatever extent he can. He is here as well for you. So,
yeah, man. It's I think of like when you first said Troy, I was like, who?
yep,
When we talked about it,
yep,
then I recognized. I'm like, okay,
yeah,
this brother's been changing and saving lives for some time, right? And I honor him for all of the work that he's done, all of the sacrifice that he's done for many people in the community. And so I just want to lift him up in love and blessings, right? And that he is able to find that joy, to tap into that joy at this time around all of this that's happening,
yep,
right? Because reality is like he's still got a lot of work to do,
yep.
right? I hate to put it that way, but I know I've got a lot of work to do, and he's got a lot of work to do, right? And you've got a lot of work to do.
Yes, sir.
And in order to move that, in order to move to that purpose that God put us here for, we got to keep moving, and we got to stay within faith and stay within our purpose, right? And it's a powerful brother, man, and
Yep.
and I feel you, and I feel him, and if there is anything I can do, and there's any way I can help, or if he just needs a moment to talk, right? I'm available for that.
Yes,
You
sir.
know, so.
Yes.
But
Uncle,
yeah, man. But I am gonna get back at you though. Like you need to get on it, man.
I am.
We ain't gonna have that. We ain't gonna have that. I'm just finding how to see notes. So you know what I mean. Yeah, Sharon Cornelius.
She walked in person the other night, and I literally said her name 3 times in person. She said that on the street, people walk up to her and they say her name 3 times.
Yeah,
So, but I'm glad
yeah,
we're closing out with some Black joy, man. And Troy,
yeah,
again, we love you, bro, and
yeah.
salute you and lift you, sir. But no,
Absolutely.
Uncle, I'm on chapter 6 in
Okay.
the book, and it's interesting because Audible it's hard to remember. I remember the meat of what he said, but the exact words versus reading. But there have been a whole bunch of nuggets. There have been a whole bunch of
Yeah,
ouches. But
yeah,
it's been good. I haven't
yeah.
got
It's a way to audible the tag stuff, but I can tell you about that down the road. You know what I mean?
even
But
if it
I
was,
always say listen to it first,
yep, and
and
then
then
go
you
back.
can go back and figure out like certain parts.
Okay. All
You
right.
know what I mean? But yeah, man, it's like just I'm looking at all of the folks up there, and I just want to say, look, love and blessings to all of y'all for the holidays,
Yes, sir.
right? And again, do what you can do. Don't overextend yourself. You don't want to. I remember many days I was paying bills till next December, right? And then we go back in debt, right, in order to get certain things that I didn't really need,
Yep.
that my son didn't really need, right? And so I would just say, look, do what you can do, but time together with family, sharing some love and purpose, documenting some history, having some real conversations. Like I'm recording the conversations I have with my mom,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I was listening to some this morning. I was going back cracking up, right? But I dread the day that I can't have those conversations in person.
Yep.
But I want her grandson's grandson to remember and be able to hear her voice and to hear her wisdom.
Yep.
So if you do anything this summer, is to be able to have some of those conversations, put some of those on tape, right? Because we all got it on our cell phones. Most of us can walk around with 2 cell phones, right? We all got it. So, start documenting some of those stories, even the stories we don't want to hear, right?
Yeah.
Or we shape in a different way, right? And, that to me is my gift to my mom, right? To be able to, she doesn't need anything from me. I don't need anything from her except for her love.
Yes, sir.
And she needs to know that, we as our kids love her and that the work that she's done, on our behalf, and her faith in God, right, and her being on her knees every night praying for us, has meant something.
Yep.
And so for me, all I want her to know is that all those extra prayers she had to say to me, that I'm thankful for me, right? That I'm thankful, and that there's a love inside of me that she implanted that will never ever be broken,
Yes, sir.
right? And so I'll leave it at that, man. I love you, man. I
I love you
appreciate the
too.
time this morning. You know what I mean? And so I'm still waiting on my Java with Jimmy shirt that's been like what 2 years. You know what I mean? So maybe I'll get that for Christmas. But it's all good. I'm waiting on my Love Pride shirt that you gave away 5 minutes before seeing me that I still haven't received. Right? Right? You know what I mean?
I knew.
Maybe I'll get that for Christmas. You know what I mean? Maybe Pop will create a new design and maybe I'll be the first to get it next Christmas, right? Or the Christmas after. Right? You know what I mean? Or maybe for my birthday in February, I get a shirt that has all of the 50 logos the shirts that you owe me. Right? So
there's only one thing on one of them that's a limitation, and I'm not going to say what that limitation is, but I knew you were going to get me. I thought it was going to be with the accountability, but see,
yeah, nah, man. Look, that's a you and I conversation.
Yes, sir. Right? Absolutely. And
as
how we roll.
I try to hold you accountable, you're holding me accountable.
Yes, sir.
Right. And so that's a much larger in-person real talk conversation.
Yep.
Right.
Yes, sir.
And I'm still waiting for that. Wasn't you supposed to be having the after dark and
I was, but the offline conversation that we had that I'm supportive in was a contributing factor to that.
Okay. So now blaming it on me. Okay. All right. I got it.
Get off here because then we gonna forget that we online and then go say something and be like,
exactly. Yeah. Well, I already got something in my head I had to control, right? All right, brother. I love you, man.
Cool. I love you, man.
You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
I'll definitely talk to you before Christmas.
And no. We'll be checking in
before the New Year's. Yeah. And everybody up here, love all of y'all, because I see the comments. I'm not always on, but I do check it later on in the day. And I think that's what people are missing out on. So Stay blessed.
All right. Uncle. I love you, man.
All right, brother.
All right. Bye-bye.
Peace.
Hey, everybody. I really, when Uncle shared that text, I reached out to him and I said, hey, would you come on and talk about that perspective? Because for me, it was a quick thought. It was, her mental health. The other thing I was thinking was, the State Department going to pull her in and say, hey, while you were there, was there anything that you observed, that you heard, that you feel is relevant to share with us? So I really appreciate him. And you all know Uncle is a staple pillar supporter, not only in the Java Cafe, but me as well. And so it is Thankful Thursday. We didn't take our traditional flow, but thank all of you that are here today. Today, as I often say on Thursday, is my Friday. And so we will see you all next week. Don't forget, on Monday, we'll be back with Dr. Brandy for Mental Health Mondays. There is going to be some sort of shift coming with Mental Health Mondays. Part of the stuff that Thaddeus and I have talked about is just expanding and building out and embracing just some different approaches to things. So, but this Monday, Dr. Brandy is coming back. On Tuesday the 13th, Mrs. Shillingford and Kenya Beeman of the Caribbean American Carnival Association of Boston will be with us to talk about what they're doing with the application. The application for the board was made available yesterday. And so Tuesday, Ms. Shillingford is coming to talk. On Wednesday the 14th, those from the Mass Health Connector are coming to speak with us about making sure that if you're not insured, how to get insurance, or if you're eligible for free insurance based on your income, they'll have information about that. We may have a special guest next week. Our Congresswoman's office reached out and she wants to check in with us about just what's going on in the community. And so we're trying to work that out with the schedule or whatever. I told them I would, maybe come on a Friday or whatever for my sister. And so we're working that out as we speak next week. And I think that is it. So hold on. I'm glad you came out okay, Nicole. We thank God that you came okay. Hey, Sister Debbie. Awesome. I didn't get everybody's comments today. Sharon said Dr. Brandy was excellent on UCB. She did a spot on suicide. Awesome. But Nicole, you had us cracking up the other day. Love you too, Mama Java. Yes, Teresa, you did hear the word Amazon earlier. That's her superpower. No, I'm messing. All right, that's it. We will see you guys Monday at 9 a.m. I don't think there's anything else major going on. No, I think we're good. We'll see you guys on Monday. Remember to stay intentionally thankful. I seen that Rena was in here earlier talking about intentional self-care, aftercare. It did my heart good to see Brother Troy in here. And so we'll see you guys on Monday at 9 a.m. here in the Java Cafe. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Remember to practice intentional thankful. Well, let's go through the week. Remember to do your best to be well regarding your mental wellness. Remember that a testimony comes from your ability to take past experiences, apply them to the current test, and you keep your testimony. Remember that we need to know that there's a whole civic engagement pledge that started from the mayor's office around voting and calling in when there's issues with basic city services. And today we were thankful that Brittany Griner was released and also got a time to understand how the impact of what happened to her is going to impact her mental health. And as the president said, she needs time and space. And as Uncle said, we need to give ourselves time and space and grace. All right. That was a summation.